So strategies for success, navigating B2B brand building and demand generation. So I'm going to cover what I've learned over the last 3 years on my journey at Aon, but we're also going to look at how we can kind of measure both our brand building efforts, our demand efforts, and how they're interconnected. So my name's Lynzi Ashworth, is on the screen. I've been at Aon for 12 years. Aon are a global B2B consulting firm, very predominant in the insurance broking and investment space, but offer a full portfolio of solutions for businesses grouped under risk capital and human capital in 120 countries, 160 colleagues. My role is a global role, so I look after strategy, planning and analytics currently. My previous role was looking after our go-to-market campaign, so this is why I'm talking about the last 3 years where we've been building a new go-to-market framework, so how we take our campaigns to market, which has very much been driven by our CMO's desire to be able to show the impact of marketing. So everything that I'm going to show you kind of contextually around how we've been building out campaigns is we have a consistent way of how we build our go-to-market framework so we can measure consistently, and that's how everything's come together, and my role was kind of sitting in the middle of all that. Oh, I got a clicker that works. No? No, I haven't. What am I pressing? Green button?
We'll ask our psychopathetic test.
There we go. Hang on.
There you want it? There we are.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I'll skip this. This is my intro slide. Just talk through that, so we'll skip this one. So I'm going to start with this one because I got invited by my agency, one of our ad agencies, to Cannes last year, which I love because I'm not in the creative space, but I'm really interested to how we can kind of learn from creative leaders about what we should be doing. This was Connie Brands, and she's from Unilever, and she was talking very much around how the brands that she's really seeing winning, like both Unilever brands and the wider brands, were the ones that, when constricted both financially, are not taking their foot off their brand building. And it's something that we've really focused on at Aon, and we've really fought our cause for, that when budgets are constricted, that we can see, and we in the marketplace can see, that the brands that are really winning and coming out on top are the ones that don't kind of get nervous about investing in that long-term brand building. And I think I'm hearing more and more about this, actually. I heard a lot about it at Cannes last year, and the more kind of academic learning and podcasting and what we're listening to is you need to keep on investing in that brand building to then see that bottom of the funnel performance marketing uplift as well. So at Aon, what we've been doing, we used to be very much focused. We always had a brand strategy, but generally we were probably 90% from a budgetary and resourcing perspective focused on demand generation. And 3 years ago, we went through a rebrand. So we launched our new rebrand proposition, and we made the strategic decision that we are going to have a proper go-to-market framework that is built around brand building and demand generation. A big piece for that was change management, because where we'd always been in that kind of real driving that performance marketing at the bottom of the funnel, we really had to educate both our commercial leaders, our FD, we were just talking about how do we talk to our FD about brand building, but also our marketers. We've got a 500 strong marketing team on the importance of brand building and crafting that memorable identity, and why we need to be doing it, and why we need to be positioning ourselves and making ourselves very relevant to our buyers through investing in brand building. Still carrying on with that demand generation and work that carries on, but making sure that we've got that right balance. And how we did this is we now have an actual campaign, so under our kind of campaigns team, we have a global campaigns team that are essentially ring-fenced to just manage our brand campaigns. So our brand campaigns, they're all run globally. They do drive down into regions, but we have a team that are very much focused on that brand building, crafting our proposition and taking that to market. So they are a global team. And then we have regional growth marketing teams who are more focused on our engagement and demand campaigns. So our new go-to-market framework that we designed, I mean, quite simply, this is how it looks. Or we call it the Aon Red framework, but this is what we kind of put on the screen. I mean, every marketer would have seen a funnel, right? We all know the marketing funnel. But this was what we called the Aon Red framework, and it was just a really simple kind of visual cue for us to be able to educate both our marketing teams and our commercial leaders on these are the different types of activities we're going to be doing, and these are the outcomes that we're driving. So the Red framework: reputation, engagement, and demand. And we have very specific teams focusing on each of these areas. So our reputation campaigns and activities are around expanding our addressable market. Our engagement activities are around increasing the understanding of our capabilities and expertise, products and solutions in kind of English, and our demand generation. So we have demand generation teams who are then creating the demand for our regional and local priorities. All of this work's very interconnected, but we just have teams that are very focused on each. So, and very specific kind of messaging, visual identity and channel strategy for each of these different areas. So what I'm actually going to show, I'm hoping this will play, it's a video. So when we're looking at our reputation outcomes, which is looking at expanding our addressable market, we've kind of broken down those outcomes further to say what we're trying to do when we are running a reputation campaign is continually expand our addressable market, demonstrate relevance to our clients, and articulate our unique proposition. So our unique brand proposition that we launched September 21 was an overarching kind of new brand proposition, as that Aon are in the market, are in the business of better decisions. That should flow off the tongue like that, but it doesn't.
Every day,
this was our
big
kind of
decisions
campaign,
are made without full information, overloaded by data, compounded by complexity,
being blamed on this heat wave, and it's
made in the dark, without relevant insight and advice. Better decisions are made in the light. Full context, all the facts, with clarity and confidence. So organizations and the people they rely on are protected and able to grow. Aon is in the business of better decisions.
So this was one of the signature launch assets of when we went to market in our new brand and our new proposition of Aon in the market of better decisions. We don't talk about our products, solutions, how we're solving issues for clients, and any of this. So from a lot of our commercial leaders, when we show them this, it kind of freaks them out slightly, going, well, what about my product? How am I going to sell cyber insurance? How am I selling like pensions and investments off the back of it? So it took a lot of education on why this positioning piece should come first, and how this is priming our audience, and how we're doing brand building. So it's a very, a very unique kind of piece. It was new for us, but that's kind of an example of what we're doing with our reputation campaigns. And then next we have engagement. So we have a team that kind of half sit globally and half sit within the regions, which is focused on driving engagement campaigns. And the idea of these is increasing the understanding of our capabilities and expertise. Essentially, this is about shifting the understanding of what people know about us. We were known for being an insurance broker and a pensions and investments broker. So where we think there are gaps in client knowledge about what the full breadth of our portfolio of what we can do for clients, we run these kind of education campaigns, which is white papers, webinars, kind of just that education and getting them to engage in our newer or more diverse portfolio. So it's purely about increasing understanding. And then demand campaigns. So we are still very much in the market having these always on straight to demand campaigns, which is essentially showing up when people are in the market to buy one of our products, which is just always on, pretty consistent with messaging, but just lead gen and demand gen for both current clients and new clients around increasing product density. So we have the three areas, very different in the messaging, sometimes very different in the creative look and feel, and very different in the channel strategy as well. So shifting slightly here, this is, I'm sure many of you will recognise this white paper, but I get laughed at quite a lot in the kind of in the office, because I will often wangle this when we're looking at how much should we be investing in our brand strategy, how much should we be investing in our demand strategy and the different areas of the funnel, why should we not, when we're getting budgets restricted, why we shouldn't be taking our foot off the pedal with the brand investment. So I'm often quoting snippets. I just basically kind of copy and paste from this white paper quite a lot, because why have my own ideas when Les Binnett and Fields are better. So the key learnings from this white paper, so if everyone hasn't read the long and short of it, I advise you do, because it's fantastic. It's 10 years old, but I find it more relevant today than it was 10 years ago. But the key learnings from this white paper, so the three kind of I pull out when we're having conversations around investment and what we should be doing with our marketing budget, is when planning, it's important to have both, right? So we shouldn't be taking our foot off the pedal with either. So it is important to have both. Each brand, you need to kind of weigh out where that investment needs to sit, but you need to have both to have that complementary impact. When you're looking at your brand campaign, when you're looking at short-term kind of performance campaigns, you'll turn those on and you can start to see that kind of pipeline uplift immediately, where where you need a longer-term investment, probably 3. We've actually looked at a 5-year to see that kind of sweet spot of investment in our brand campaign, but when we've done a lot of modelling around it. But essentially, the average is that when you see this kind of intersect of ROI, that you will see that brand investment pay back from an ROI perspective after 3 years. And the third key point, I mean, it's I don't know, hugely long white paper, but these are the 3 top ones I like from it. The third point I like from the long and short of it paper is, when you're thinking about your brand campaigns, and they've done huge amounts of test and learning on this, is that essentially your brand campaigns need to be emotional messaging. And where you can see the higher profit is where they are really kind of really digging deep into that emotional type messaging. And that even plays out across both B2C and B2B. I think a lot of the time in the B2B brands, we can be slightly nervous around kind of tapping into those emotional type messages, but the data is showing us over and over that in both B2C and B2B that we need to really be kind of tapping into that emotional type messaging to see that ROI increase. So I'm quickly kind of jumping on through, because I did want to leave some time for leave some time for questions at the end. But the piece that we really need to look at, and this is where we actually started from. So we started to look at saying, well, how can we measure the impact of our marketing? And it was interesting because we did really separate out what we do across reputation, engagement and demand. They have separate teams running them with separate slightly separate strategies. Yes, the messaging needs to be interconnected, but how can we start to put together a measurement framework that can show that very high level impact and also the interconnectivity of all those different activities? When we put together, sorry, this is quite tiny and the screen's quite small, but I'll kind of go through what we're looking at. When we started to look at what is it that we're going to measure in our impact framework, it's quite difficult, right? Because there's so many stats and data points and data sources and different questions and decisions that we need to make. So my analytics team, we worked with both commercial leaders and marketing leaders to say, well, there was 2 stages to this process. So what are the decisions we need to make from marketing analytics? And that's where we start. So what are the decisions that we need to make? And to make those decisions, what are the questions that we need to answer? So before we started to look at all the data available to us, because that kind of wave of data can be slightly overkill, and particularly when you're looking at kind of campaign data, channel metrics and all those bits and pieces, we just started with, well, what are the questions that we need to answer? And we run workshops with all our regional CMOs and all our solution line CMOs, just to essentially say, what are the questions that we need to answer? What are the questions that we're getting from the business that kind of tells a story about the impact that we're making? What are the questions that we need to answer to be able to make decisions about how we change our strategy or how we plan for future strategy? So we got lots and lots of questions in. We didn't put them under these banners to start off with. We just ran all these workshops, just telling us what the questions that you get all the time from the business that you need to answer. So then when we got all these questions back from these multiple workshops, I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds, so we had to kind of slim them down and look at these and create these high-level questions. And then what we did, we grouped them under the different areas where we try and have kind of impact. So reputation, engagement, and demand. At that high level, I mean, we flipped the outcome. So the outcome for reputation campaigns is, are we expanding our addressable market, because that's what we're looking to do? Are we increasing the understanding of the capabilities? Are we driving demand? And then we created a question set underneath that would help us roll up to answer these questions. So that's how we started to think about how can we put together a measurement framework that shows the full impact of everything we're doing as a firm. And it was interesting when we actually put this together, some of the questions that were coming up, and then pushing those back to saying, well, we got a lot of questions in, and then we said, well, if we can answer that question, what's the decision we're going to make off the back of that? Or what we're going to do with that data? And then someone will go, well, I don't really know. It's nice to have. So we get a lot of questions like that where people want to know, but there is no strategic decision that we're going to make off the back of it. So that was quite an interesting piece as well, saying, do we really need to know that? Is that a really important data point, or is that just a nice to know or a vanity metric? And this process as well, I mean, this wasn't quick. So putting this together was probably about a 4 to 6 month process, because we wanted to get stakeholder, not just from the marketing community, but also from our commercial community as well, because essentially we're looking at how are we showing the value of the marketing, what's the kind of the model, what's the value we're creating as marketing, and so talking to commercial leaders and finance leaders as well, saying what do you need to know from us to understand the value we're creating. And this was the question set that we ended up with. We are actually evolving this now, because we've just evolved our brand strategy slightly, we've evolved our operating model. So this we did about 18 months ago, so we're about to revisit this process again as we're refining our measurement strategy. So it's not fixed, but this was our kind of first iteration at this. And then, I'm about to show you probably the least sexy slide you've seen all day, so excuse the layout, but it was, I'm not great at putting slides together. This is what we ended up with, which I'm nearly finished actually, so hopefully I'm doing this talk again, I can actually put a dashboard up. But this is what we ended up with, is the metrics aligned with our key outcomes. So these are all those kind of metrics that we are going to be pulling to answer each of these questions. So in demand, are we driving demand for our regional priorities? We look at what are the leads that we're creating, so we create leads, but we are a B2B kind of relationship type business, so we wanted a metric as well that we could understand total marketing influence revenue. I mean, even a metric like that is a difficult one to get buy-in from agreement, so we kind of worked with a consultancy and just to understand how do we define marketing influence revenue. So we've kind of got this new data model where we can look at if an opportunities rise up out of the system and we can see different weighted marketing interactions. We decide that if we've had 4 marketing interactions before that opportunity is in place, we will consider that revenue marketing influence. So yeah, lots of these metrics had quite a lot of workflow behind it to get kind of buy-in that that's the right metric, and a lot of consultancy time as well. But so we look at, yeah, are we driving demand? So are we increasing marketing influence pipeline? Are we increasing marketing influence revenue? That bottom of the funnel metric. In our engagement piece, where we're saying, are we increasing the understanding and consideration? We're looking at when people are coming to events, in that we're looking at post-event questionnaires, seeing how much they were moving the needle in that understanding. We are looking at how people are engaging with content on our website. We also started to look at, and this was a kind of a later introduction, because we realised as we've gone through a rebrand, it's really important that our colleagues are understanding our brand proposition. So we've actually started to introduce colleague understanding metrics into this metrics framework, because we're thinking, well, they're the people talking to our clients. Are they getting it? Are they engaged? So we've started to put colleague understanding metrics in there as well. So that's an engagement. Reputation, are we expanding our addressable market? So this is that top of the funnel. So here we're looking at share of voice, unaided and aided awareness, favourability, familiarity, sentiment, share of search, search volume, quality of regional media coverage, our newsletter subscription growth, and the type of mentions that we're getting in media. So we're looking at all these, and this is now being built out into a dashboard from, I'm trying to think of the amount of different data sources we've got going in. We've got 8 different data sources, I think, currently feeding into this overarching dashboard, both from paid media, Google Analytics, our new media monitoring tool. So it's all kind of coming together under a single dashboard to help us really tell that story around what is the impact of the marketing organisation. So those are the kind of metrics on a page of what we're doing, but what we're also doing is doing an interconnectivity piece with our data analysts, saying how much, if these are moving the needle here, and being able to build a data modelling to see how much, if we're moving the needle here, what's the impact on engagement and what's the impact on demand as well. So I've got some very clever data analysts who are just working through that piece as well. Where am I? So that's where we've landed on my very unsexy, but I do love this slide because it's kind of taken me 2.5 years to get there. So I'll just take over to any questions.